You're watching CW Montana. This is the MTN 9 o'clock news.
Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Russ Riesinger. Montana begins to open up as soon as this Sunday. Exactly 4 weeks after he issued a stay-at-home order, Governor Steve Bullock announces plans to lift that directive and get the state's economy moving slowly, carefully, and strategically. Governor Bullock laying out the details of the reopening the Big Sky plan at a news conference this afternoon. The governor said there is reason for optimism, but not celebration, and that Montanans will continue to have to go to great lengths to protect each other because he says once we are open, we want to stay open.
Starting this Sunday, the stay-at-home order will be lifted. Now, that doesn't mean it's time for the celebratory block party or big barbecue.
But come Sunday, churches will be able to open if they want. And on Monday, Main Street businesses can open their doors with a number of stipulations. Health assessments must be done on employees, and physical distancing of 6 feet must be maintained between customers. Some of the other highlights: senior living and assisted living facilities must continue to prohibit visitors. Child care facilities, organized youth activities, and outdoor recreation can open, but gyms and theaters must remain closed. Personal care, such as getting a haircut, will be possible again on Monday, but with strict guidelines. A week later, on May 4th, restaurants, bars, and casinos can reopen, but with strict rules.
Restaurants can operate at most at half of the regular capacity. No more than 6 people can sit together. And there has to be plenty of space between tables. You won't be able to sit at the bar to drink. And all customers will have to be out of the establishment during this first phase by 11:30 p.m.
Schools can resume, but Bullock is leaving that up to local school boards to decide. And those traveling into the state must continue to quarantine for 14 days.
I recognize that our tourism industry is hurting. But as Montanans have worked so hard to stop the spread of this virus, this first phase of reopening isn't yet the time to allow others to come into our state. As I've said before, our new normal is going to look different.
Well, a number of considerations will be taken before Montana can move to the next phase, and you can see Governor Bullock's full plan for reopening and what it will look like on KTVQ.com. Well, all this as we report 2 more coronavirus-related deaths this evening. Flathead County reports its second COVID-related death, and another life has been lost in Toole County, bringing the total there to 6 now. Across the state, 14 people have died, and 2 new confirmed cases are reported. This brings the total number for the state to 439. More than half of those individuals are now recovered, 296. Well, students, teachers, and parents all across the state have been waiting in anticipation to find out how their school year will end. Governor Bullock today marking May 7th, 2 weeks from tomorrow, the defining day. Bullock has opted to give that control and decision to local school districts. Q2's Mitch Legge joins us now with what that means for Billings. Mitch?
Governor Bullock said he plans to give local control to local school boards as to the decision on whether or not to reopen for the remainder of the school year. In an update video today, Billings School District 2 Superintendent Greg Upham said he would like that decision made as soon as possible. Judging from the comments on School District 2's social media, parents and students in Billings are anxious for a decision. This as some students have struggled to learn in an online classroom. At a school board meeting Monday, Superintendent Upham said that he does not support returning students to the classroom. Upham reasoned that the risk for disease spread is too great because social distancing isn't practical for 19,000 Billings students and teachers. And again, Upham said that he would like the decision on whether or not to bring students back to be reached as soon as possible, but it's in school board trustees' hands now. Reporting at home in Billings, Mitch Legge, MTN News.
All right, thanks, Mitch. As for Billings High School graduation ceremonies, Upham says those are still up in the air. Well, smaller school districts may find it easier to comply with social distancing if they choose to bring kids back to the classroom, but some have already made the decision to close for the remainder of the school year. Lockwood Schools announced Monday it would close, and today Pioneer Elementary School north of Billings has also made the decision to close. The Huntley Project Superintendent tells Q2 administrators are weighing options, should have a decision made by Tuesday. Schools in Laurel and Shepherd have not yet decided. Schools will have the option of reopening on Thursday, May 7th. However, the timeline for schools in Phase 1 has effectively ended hope for high school spring sports in Montana. The Montana High School Association officially canceled spring activities this afternoon following Bullock's announcement. The May 7th date is 3 days after the MHSA's deadline for all schools to return to in-class education without restrictions. MHSA Executive Director Mark Beckman says they're already looking at options should the pandemic affect the fall sports season. Well, today's announcement allows for churches to hold services this Sunday. Many churches have been holding services online, and some have found other creative ways to connect with their congregations. The governor's directive states that places of worship can have reduced capacity and strict physical distancing. However, families can sit together. Montana Pastors Network sent a letter to the governor last weekend and is happy that the order allows for more than 10 in places that allow for appropriate physical distancing.
We're very thankful that he has allowed churches to meet in groups of more than 10. As long as strict guidelines are in place, those churches that are large enough to allow for larger groups are free to do that. And our churches are going to abide by those guidelines. They'll be thrilled to be able to get back together again.
We also talked with Bishop Michael Warfel of the Diocese of Great Falls Billings. He will talk with his priest tomorrow and also expects that churches will hold services on Sunday. Governor Bullock's phased-in reopening of Montana business community provides a blueprint to restart the state's economy. Main Street and retail businesses can open April 27th, but they must adhere to new capacity limits and maintain strict physical distancing. Here in Billings, Big Sky Economic Development and Riverstone Health are partnering to provide guidance to local business owners on how to develop those specific plans. Steve Arviskow at Big Sky EDA tells Q2 the new Safe Open campaign will also include a public education effort. Arviskow says a Friday news conference is planned to outline the specifics. Restaurants, bars, breweries, distilleries, and casinos will be able to open business a week later, coming up on Monday, May 4th. Now, as federal dollars start to trickle down, we're learning where that money is going. Airports are struggling to make budget through the pandemic, but a much-needed boost from the CARES Act will help. However, as Q2's Andrea Lutz reports, that money doesn't seem to be evenly spread.
Well, definitely a different scene here at the Billings Airport than even just a few months ago. Really no planes out on the airfield here, which is really different for this time of year normally. Obviously, the Billings Airport is feeling the pain, but federal stimulus dollars could help.
When we saw the amount of the CARE grant that came in, went, okay, now we can actually continue down the path we were going.
The CARES Act was kind to Billings, gifting some $12 million to help get through the downturn from the coronavirus.
But what we will do is just take those operating costs, package them up each month, and do a drawdown on that grant against it to cover them.
Kevin Plone with the airport says they'll use this money to stay afloat.
It'll keep us basically net zero.
Out of Montana, the Billings Airport got the second highest amount of money from the CARES Act behind Bozeman, which got about $15 million. But what's caught many by surprise is Cody, Wyoming.
We were stunned when we got that much money.
That's where some $18 million came down in federal stimulus dollars to an airport belonging to a town of some 9,000 residents.
We don't have any debt, and that was one of the key components. And we're a growth airport. We're the fastest growing airport in Wyoming.
Bucky Hall is chair of the board for the Yellowstone Regional Airport. He says Cody was once an oil town and is now a tourism hotspot.
We're 50 miles away from the park. We have a world-class museum here that's a destination for people. And between that and being the east entrance of the park, and we're kind of sort of the entrance to the northeast entrance where Cook City, Montana is.
They'll use their federal dollars to also maintain operating costs while also starting future projects now.
We have projects for 5, 6, 7 years out. And basically, this money allows us to do all those projects right away.
And the same is true for Billings. Remember that nearly $60 million airport expansion they've been talking about? Well, Plone says all of that was up in the air just a few weeks ago.
If we can build this project this year, when the numbers are low, I think we come out ahead all the way around.
In Billings, Andrea Lutz, MTN News.
Well, each airport isn't sure when that money will come in or be available for use. The FAA did tell the airports they cannot use the money to recruit new airlines. And you can catch all of the stories in the Rebound series on our website, ktvq.com. We'll be running Rebound stories every weekday as we highlight the efforts of Montana businesses as they get back on their feet. Still to come on tonight's 9 o'clock news, Montanans have some big decisions to make as primary day creeps even closer. Up next, we'll take a closer look at the Republican battle for governor. But first, Bob McGuire is in with your full forecast.